Hello, class. Moving right along in our lectures, we have reached John chapter 9, and the title of this lecture is The Healing of the Man Born Blind. So let's get started. Verse 1, As he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth, and his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he would be born blind? Jesus answered, It was neither that this man sinned nor his parents, but it was so that the works of God might be displayed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me as long as it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. On the Sabbath day, Jesus went once again into the temple and saw a poor blind beggar. According to Pharisaic tradition, it was not permitted for the beggar to ask or receive alms on the Sabbath day. Following the Jewish concept that physical disability was a divine judgment for sin, the disciples concluded that the man's parents had sinned or he had committed some sin. Jesus declared that this man had been born blind so that the works of God might be displayed in him. Verse 6, When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made clay of the spittle and applied the clay to his eyes and said to him, Go, wash in the pool of Siloam, which is translated sent. So he went away and washed and came back seeing. Therefore the neighbors and those who previously saw him as a beggar were saying, Is not this the one who used to sit and beg? Others were saying, This is he. Still others were saying, No, but he is like him. He kept saying, I am the one. Jesus now proposed to demonstrate he was the light of the world. Jesus spit on the ground, made some mud with saliva, put it on the man's eyes, and said to him, Go wash in the pool of Siloam. The man went, washed, and came back seeing. The miracle raised a question as to the identity of the man on whom the miracle had been performed. Verse 13. They brought to the Pharisees the man who was formerly blind. Now it was a Sabbath day on the day when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also were asking him again how he received his sight. And he said to them, He applied clay to my eyes, and I washed, and I see. Therefore some of the Pharisees were saying, This man is not from God, because he does not keep the Sabbath. But the others were saying, How can a man who is a sinner perform such signs? And there was a division among them. The healed man insisted that he was the blind beggar. Such an unprecedented miracle brought the man to the attention of the Pharisees. Although the man had not identified the one who had made him see to the Pharisees, they quickly conjectured that he was Jesus. The Pharisees publicly denied that the one who had done this was from God because he does not keep the Sabbath. Others were not satisfied with the denial by the Pharisees, knowing that a sinner could not perform such a miracle. Verse 17. So they said to the blind man again, What do you say about him, since he opened your eyes? And he said, He is a prophet. The Jews did not believe it of him, that he had been blind and had received sight, until they called the parents of the very one who had received his sight, and questioned them, saying, Is this your son, who you say was born blind? Then how does he now see? His parents answered them and said, We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. When the Pharisees asked the healed man, What do you say about him, since he opened your eyes? He said, He is a prophet. If this man truly had been blind and now could see, a notable miracle had been performed, and the Pharisees would not be able to deny it happened. So they attempted to deny that the man was actually blind, and they summoned the parents of the blind man to question them. They acknowledged that he was their son and had been blind since birth. Look at verse 21. But how he now sees, we do not know, or who opened his eyes, we do not know. Ask him, he is of age. He will speak for himself, said the parents. His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that if anyone confessed him to be Christ, he was to be put out of the synagogue. For this reason, his parents said, he is of age, ask him. So a second time they called the man who had been blind and said to him, give glory to God, we know that this man is a sinner. The parents were afraid to become involved because the Jews had decided that anyone who acknowledged Jesus was the Christ would be put out of the synagogue. For this reason, his parents said, he is of age, ask him. Since the parents would not answer the inquiries of the Pharisees, the healed man himself was summoned a second time. Verse 25, then he answered, whether he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see. So they said to him, what did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? He answered them, I told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? You do not want to become his disciples too, do you? They reviled him and said, you are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he is from. The healed man would not answer to the theological objections of the Pharisees. Instead, he acknowledged that he had been healed, yet once again the Pharisees asked the healed man about the procedure that brought him to faith. He responded, why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too? This implied that the man had put his faith in Jesus because of the miracle he had experienced. The Pharisees replied with insults and claimed that they were disciples of Moses because they knew God had spoken to Moses, but they did not know where Jesus was from. Verse 30, the man answered and said to them, well, here is an amazing thing that you do not know where he is from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not hear sinners, but if anyone is God-fearing and does his will, he hears him. Since the beginning of time, it has never been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. They answered him, you were born entirely in sins, and you are teaching us? So they put him out. The healed man spoke his faith eloquently when he confounded the Pharisees by explaining how remarkable it was that they did not know where Jesus came from when he had given him his sight. He said if this man were not from God, he could do nothing. The Pharisees reasoned that since the man was born a sinner, he could not teach them who were righteous. Thus the healed man was thrown out of the synagogue. Verse 35. Jesus heard that they had put him out, and finding him, he said, do you believe in the Son of Man? He answered, who is he, Lord, that I may believe in him? Jesus said to him, you have both seen him, and he is the one who is talking with you. And he said, Lord, I believe. And he worshipped him. And Jesus said, for judgment I came into this world, so that those who do not see may see, and that those who see may become blind. For the first time the man could look at the one who had given him sight. Jesus asked, do you believe in the Son of Man? This is tantamount to asking, do you believe that I am the Messiah? Son of Man, that's the messianic title. The healed man requested that Jesus identify the Messiah, and Jesus therefore identifies himself as the Messiah. The man replied, Lord, I believe. Jesus then publicly declared that he who claimed to be the light of the world had come to make blind people see. Verse 40. Those of the Pharisees who were with him heard these things and said to him, We are not blind too, are we? Jesus said to them, if you were blind, you would have no sin. But since you say we see, your sin remains. The Pharisees asked if Jesus considered them to be blind. Jesus, in his reply, moved from the physical to the spiritual realm. Jesus' answer indicates that if the Pharisees had acknowledged that they were spiritually blind and had turned to him, the light of the world, for sight, they would have been forgiven their sins because of their faith in him. However, the Pharisees still claim to see where, therefore, their sin remains. Note the Johannine irony here. The Pharisees are completely unaware of their own spiritual blindness, while the formerly blind man walks home with his physical sight restored, but also a spiritually changed man. The source for this lecture was adapted from the book The Words and Works of Jesus Christ, which was authored by J. Dwight Pentecost.